I had to watch my little sister one night when my parents went out. I wasn't planning to go anywhere anyway. I was busy playing the newest video game that had just come out. My dog Sheriff was lying next to me on the bed when he suddenly lifted his head up and his ears twitched. You know that thing dogs do when they hear something? I paused the game to see if I could hear what he was listening for. I didn't hear anything and lost interest, assuming it was just someone walking their dog outside or something. Sheriff jumped off the bed and ran out through the half-open bedroom door. He was barking like crazy at something. I didn't want to follow him at first. I just yelled at him to shut up. But eventually, his normal annoying barking suddenly turned wild and defensive, as if he was confronting something or someone. That's when I got suspicious and ran to see what was happening. I heard Sheriff's nails scraping against the basement steps as he flew down the stairs. My heart sank as I realized he must have been chasing something down there. I found myself standing at the top of the basement steps for a whole minute, staring into the darkness below and gathering up the courage to go down there. I finally did it, turning the light on as I went down. Sheriff was standing by the door to the laundry room, still barking. I didn't even think about opening that door. I trusted Sheriff enough to believe that someone was in there. I struggled but eventually picked him up and ran with him all the way back upstairs. As I was about to turn off the basement light, I heard the sound of the laundry room door creaking open. At that instant, I slammed the basement door shut and locked it. I listened for a few moments with my ear against the door, and I could hear barely over the sound of Sheriff barking the sound of footsteps on the stairs. I dove for the phone and called the police. When they arrived, they caught him trying to break out through the basement window. My sister and I watched as the officers walked him out to the patrol car. I'll never forget the dreadful stare that man gave me as he was forced into the back seat of the police car. But I'll also never forget how grateful I was to have Sheriff with me that night. I used to have a Beagle Pointer mix before she passed away at the age of 11. Her name was Mandy, and she was the sweetest and most loyal dog a person could ask for. She would never harm a fly, but she did have a big mouth and wasn't afraid to use it. I was 15 years old, getting ready for sleep one night like any other. Mandy always slept in my room, and when I walked in, finally ready to crash in bed, I was greeted by Mandy growling. She wasn't looking at anything in particular. I playfully asked her what was wrong, and she just made an annoyed doggy sound before putting her head down. I found it funny. For a good hour of me rolling around trying to fall asleep, Mandy would constantly break the silence with growling. I would peek at her, but she would still have her head down. She showed no reaction when I offered to take her outside, so I could check that off the list. It quickly went from cute and funny to just annoying, but I eventually fell asleep. I woke up to see that it was 2 a.m., and Mandy was still growling. I tried to adjust my eyes in the dark, and I could eventually see Mandy standing in the middle of the room. She was looking up at my closet door. I felt my heart begin to race. What I was witnessing was flat out disturbing. I turned on the lamp and watched as Mandy continued to stare up at my closet. I don't know what I was thinking, but I decided to open up the closet and check what she was barking at. I should mention that I have one of those closets that leads to an attic space. When I checked, there was nothing visible in the closet, but I noticed the attic door was cracked open. You can imagine the fear that shot through my body as I ran to my parents' room to get my dad. He didn't seem to take me too seriously until he got to my room and saw Mandy growling and looking up at my closet. My dad is a big guy, so he went into the closet without a weapon. I sat there worried about what would happen next. What came next was my dad screaming at the top of his lungs at somebody. I heard boxes fall over and glass shatter as my dad groaned in apparent pain. Someone was rushing out of the closet. I hoped it was my dad, but instead, some 6 feet 5 inches man with a hammer in his hand jumped out from the closet and ran past me. What happened next still surprises everyone. Mandy jumped up and grabbed hold of the man's arm with her teeth. The scream of that unfamiliar voice filled the room. My dad came rushing out of the closet just in time to jump onto the intruder and take him down. He sent my mom to get my little brother's toy handcuffs. My dad held him down while I handcuffed the guy. Thankfully, he was sent to jail. I don't know what his intentions were, but obviously, if he had a hammer with him, he probably wasn't just planning on robbing us. If we didn't have Mandy at that time, I can only imagine what would have happened to our family. I was only 11 years old, and my brother was only 8. We were walking our dog Buster around the block in the evening. Buster was a husky German Shepherd mix. Upon turning the corner to the other side of our neighborhood in Brighton, we ran into a tall man who greeted us with a smile. He stopped in his tracks and seemed to expect us to do the same. It seemed like he was trying to start a conversation, but we just kept walking past him. My brother kept looking back, telling me that the man was following us. He was right each time I turned around. The man was the same distance from us, but he would stop and look away whenever we looked back. I motioned to my brother to walk faster. The faster we started to walk, it seemed the closer he got to us. We were approaching our house, but my heart stopped when I heard the muffled scream of my brother as he was grabbed and pulled away. Buster started barking like crazy, and I swear to you, he pulled the leash right out of my hands and sunk his teeth into the man's leg. I could see the blood dripping down his leg as his screams caught the attention of people inside their houses. Our neighbor Mrs. Johnson came outside, and we explained everything while pointing at the man. The man began hopping away on his injured leg. I had to put the leash back on Buster to keep him from chasing after him. Mrs. Johnson called the cops. She was a tiny little woman. She couldn't have done anything to that guy even if she tried. She then walked us to our door and told our parents what had happened. Police came to question us and Mrs. Johnson. They caught the man limping down a sidewalk a few blocks over shortly after. One of the cops told us our dog was a hero, but we already knew that.